Well, Lucas, it's time for Superhero Month to come to a close, but we're together!
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Welcome to Hester Bros Cartoon Theater, everybody! We have had such a fun time doing Superhero Month so far, and we are really stoked to close it down with a little special. Our top 10 animated superhero characters.
Technical brackets of our definitions are these three things. 1, they are super, and 2, they are heroic, both within the context of their canon. And 3, they fit a superhero aesthetic. So the classic kind of, they have a costume, they have a disguise maybe, you know, like as an A-list or something like that. It's a little bit of a loose parameter, but that's the third one to kind of hone it down so that we're not including characters like Naruto or like Aang from Avatar The Last Airbender because they don't really have that same thing going on.
Aang would pretty much be on any list of best blank character if we had a choice.
Yeah,
so.
if Aang fits in a character definition, he will be one of the best. So we need to keep Avatar out of this, and I need to keep anime out of this because that's not the aesthetic that I'm trying to do with our little superhero month.
Now, Lucas and I have had some debate over what qualifies. Actually, we had a very heated debate leading into the episode. If you guys have any characters on our lists that you think don't qualify as a superhero, feel free to let us know in the comments.
I'm very interested.
And definitely let us know which list you like better in the end.
And how you would define a superhero.
We're going to start off with some honorable mentions here. Just a couple characters that didn't quite make our list.
So one of my honorable mentions, which is higher on my regular superheroes list, is Doctor Strange. He's technically been in animated stuff before, and I just love his whole psychic power system. I think he's just a cool hero in general, and I love Benedict Cumberbatch, so.
And he was inspired by Vincent Price to some degree.
Also very cool. I also love that. Deadpool is my other honorable mention because, A, he's kind of an anti-hero. I don't know if he necessarily is full-blown superhero because his motives are not necessarily well-intentioned all the time. And also just because he's been animated, but he's never been the showcased hero in an animated saga, so I didn't want to put the spotlight on him for this month.
Mini comic books have been animated into shows that Lucas and I have not seen. For example, Doctor Strange and Deadpool both fall into that category where they've been animated, but
they're in episodes that I just don't remember of shows.
So when we include these, we're trying to be like, we loved this character within the context that we watched it, and I think that's part of the reason I'm veering away from some of the comic book characters, because it's hard to rank when I haven't seen incredible shows like X-Men the Animated Series.
Yeah, I'd have more X-Men on my list too.
My honorable mentions. First of all, I'm going to shout out Kim Possible. Part of our debate about figuring out whether certain characters would qualify ended up in Kim Possible not quite making the cut because she doesn't fit the definition of the superhero as we were able to fit it in without including a whole bunch of other characters. The other honorable mention on my list was actually Virgil Hawkins, or better known as Static Shock. Because I'm going a different direction with this, and I really wanted to focus on some characters that are not really comic booky, that's the only reason I don't have him on my top 5, but if I had gone that direction, he probably would have been number 1, because I love Static Shock, and I love that character a lot, so I wanted to give
show growing up too.
Me too. Wanted to give that one a solid shout out.
On to our top 10. Technically, we each have 5, so it's overall a top 10, and we want you guys to choose which of our top 5, top 3, top 4, all of them are better than the other. Take sides, be savage. Go ham in the comments. Thanks so much. So my number 5 from My Hero Academia is Fumikage Tokoyami. I tried to do that right. If you actually know the language, feel free to correct me on my pronunciation. This character has this hawk demon appear out of his stomach and can control it in the daytime, but when it becomes nighttime, it gets huge and crazy and uncontrollable, and it just goes on a rampage. And he's this really like kind of stoic character that's really reserved because he doesn't want it to go out of control. I really partially just like his power. Like, it's a cool power, and when he is able to control it, it's really awesome. In that show, I don't, obviously, you can watch my whole what I talk about it in that episode. I don't love a lot of the characters, and I like a lot more of the villains than I do the heroes, actually, especially in regards to what actual powers they have. And I think this character is really interesting, and I want to see him explored more. So part of why I like him is because I want to see more out of them, and that's always a fun thing.
My number 5 is actually going to be Danny Phantom, a favorite of many kids our age. The reason that Lucas is shaking his head is because part of the very long debate we had leading up to this was whether Danny Phantom would classify as a superhero superhero? I think it's a very obvious yes. I see him as the Spider-Man of Nickelodeon. He enters a portal. Now he has ghost powers where he can turn into a ghost at certain times, and he has this cool little ghost outfit, and he fights supervillains that are ectoplasmic in nature, you might say. I think that that's very obviously a superhero in every sense of the word. The reason I love Danny Phantom is because I just love ghosts growing up. I love the whole ghost hunting thing. I think it's spooky and fun, and I think that him having this power which lets him interact with all of these different types of ghosts was just super fun for me growing up. I will say that him as a character is probably not the most complex ever.
Cool power.
Yeah, I would say that if he was a really awesome character too, I might bump him up on the list a little bit. The cool power really does go a long way as far as I'm concerned.
The actual power that they have has a lot of a role in my decision personally.
Sure.
Like, the character matters in some realm, but the weight of the power has a lot. And so my number 4 is the Green Lantern. The Green Lantern from the Justice League, because that's the content that I'm familiar with him being from. I love the concept of just having this, ring that can spawn whatever your imagination can create. Like, your limit is imagination. And I think that that is an amazing power. I just think that that's so cool. I love the coalition of other Green Lanterns. I love their little mantra.
In brightest day, in blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power, Green Lantern's light.
I didn't even hate the Green Lantern movie.
Did you know that my ring has a special power too? It's gonna turn into a wedding next year.
Wow. That was really dumb.
So my number 4 is going to be Freakazoid. We covered this show not that long ago. It's been one of people's favorite episodes of ours. Feel free to check it out. It's just such a zany cartoon in general, and Freakazoid as the character is what makes it so fun.
Yeah.
He does all these pop culture references constantly. He's bouncing off of walls. He's kind of what you would maybe expect Deadpool to be like if he had his own animated series, but probably not as adult. I prefer humor that doesn't rely on some of the shock value and crudeness. I'm not saying that anybody is wrong if they do like that stuff.
He hates you.
All right.
My number 3 is another choice from an anime called One Punch Man, and it is Saitama, the main protagonist.
Hey.
This bald masterpiece of a human has the power of simply being overpowered. He will defeat anything in one punch. That is his power. Don't say that he's less powerful than anyone, because he is comedically written to be more powerful than everybody, so he wins every battle. That is the joke. Jokes are more powerful than any other battle system could possibly write them into. I love this character, not just because he's a funny gag, but his character is essentially hinges on the existential dread that he faces when he realizes he can't actually have a fun fight anymore. He's gotten so powerful that he wins so quickly that he's lost all of this lust that he used to have for life and being a hero. And it's a silly concept that turns into a genuinely dramatic show where he needs to learn how to grow as a human being and find meaning in other ways and find power in other ways. I think it's a great show. I would love to cover it sometime on our show, and maybe next year if we do another superhero month, if you guys love it, then we will do it. It plays with a really awesome existential reality that I think a lot of people face when they are really good at something, because no matter how good you are at something, you won't be perfect in every single realm of life.
I really want to watch that because I relate so hard to being so good at fights that nobody can beat me. Dang, you weren't ready for that.
I got my wisdom teeth removed, and that really hurt.
I haven't seen One Punch Man, but I'm excited to do it. I think that Lucas has really sold it well, and it's a really funny idea and kind of unconventional, but super cool. So.
Oh, and same creators who did Mob Psycho 100, which is one of my favorite anime of all time. Oh, wow, that really hurt my face.
My number 3 is actually going to be the Powerpuff Girls. This is cheating a little bit because I am picking all 3 of them as one collective character. The reason that I picked them is kind of for a legacy, large part nostalgic value, and just really loving the Powerpuff Girls universe growing up. I do think that to some degree, they are kind of all one character, and their personalities come together for a lot of really interesting conflict. They did something that had never really been done before, which was have these 3 small in stature, but really powerful women characters that were superheroes in this world. And I felt like, from what I've heard, it's been very inspiring to a lot of people and helped kind of pave the way for a lot more cartoons to take those kind of risks. I just think the Powerpuff Girls really broke a lot of boundaries, and I'm excited that we've had more cartoons come along like it since then.
My number 2 is the character Robot from the show that we also reviewed recently called Invincible. Go watch this review as well, because I totally love this show so very much. Find it illegally online because Amazon is the devil. So I'm not going to say, I don't even want to say that. I don't know how to talk about this in a way that doesn't spoil the ending. We first see him in the show. I'm sorry, I have to spoil this for you.
Is there any way that you can just be super vague?
So look, I would love to explain to you why I love this character so much, but I can't because it involves so many spoilers, because why I love him is very much the crux of his plotline later in the show of Invincible. He's the robot character in Invincible. So I'm trying not to spoil it for him too, because he hasn't seen all of the show yet and I don't want to blow the ending. I was going to go blow it for all of you guys, but I don't want to blow it for him sitting right next to me. So,
but you guys are fair game.
Well, you can skip ahead. He can't, But this character is so complex, and so many of the characters are complex. He is actually my favorite character in the show. Wow. He's so good, and I can't say anything about it, but watch the show. Thank you.
Very good.
His number
2 is going to be Darkwing Duck. As I go through this list, I realize that I am not picking the most complex, awesome, interesting superhero characters that have ever existed in animation, but I already talked about that. Darkwing Duck is just fun and I love him. Growing up, I definitely watched some Darkwing Duck reruns or on VHS tapes because it was a little bit before our time. The idea that there was this Disney superhero in this cartoon era was fun to me because I loved superheroes, but a lot of the time the comic book thing wasn't big for at least me until I was more into adulthood. Yeah. And this was just your fun Caped Crusader. It wasn't too dark. It was just him beating up on some wacky villains and creating a legacy with his silliness. And sometimes that's all I like out of a show and what I wanted. So I have such a love for Darkwing Duck that I had to put him here, and I know that there are a lot of other people who have become a fan as well. And I will say, this expands into the 27 DuckTales reboot, where Darkwing Duck got even more complex and interesting than he ever did before. So if you haven't seen the DuckTales reboot, you can get a little bit of Darkwing Duck there.
That was a spoiler for me. I didn't know about that.
I wouldn't call it a spoiler.
We also reviewed the old DuckTales, so go check out that as well. We have a lot of plugs in this.
Wow, geez, I'm actually... Yes, this was not intentional.
Yeah, we did not... This is not a... I mean, I guess every YouTube video is kind of a publicity stunt in a way.
Oh, yeah.
But not really.
Just a bunch of fame whores.
Yeah.
We'll leave that out.
I'm totally a fame hoe. I'm keeping it in. Number 1?
Yeah, man. Tell us your number 1.
All right, my number 1, and this is also not a publicity stunt, is Raven from the Teen Titans. My God, is this show not so amazing? And if you don't understand why from what I'm about to say, go watch our Teen Titans review, because we happen to actually cover, again, none of this was planned, but we happen to cover an episode that focused on Raven. She is one of the most complex superhero characters we have probably ever seen in an animated show. At that time, at least. In the episode that we watched in that review, she has this conflict where she has separated her emotions in this magic mirror, and she has to confront her anger that manifests in the shape of her father. Her father ends up being this crazy demon character that is extremely powerful and was low-key abusive because it was a network show at that time.
It's heavily hinted that that's the case, based on what they were allowed to show.
Yeah, and he wants her to be evil, and she has to suppress this evil thing inside of her, even though her power comes from dark magic. There's all of these amazing themes in the show with her dealing with internal emotional struggle. It's just such an amazing characterization of the complexity of the human mind. And even though that Raven is unique in this show, I think that it's very relatable for a lot of people. I've related to her in this way, and also I just think it's one of the best shows that I ever watched growing up, and I have a great fondness for it.
Yeah, revisiting it blew my mind, and I completely agree that Raven is phenomenal. My number 1 cartoon, the last one that we're going to talk about today, happens to be Ben Tennyson, who is the main character of a show that has existed for a very long time now, or I should rather say a franchise. So I believe that we are now at a point where there have been 4 different Ben 10 series at least, with him at different ages, different types of styles of animation.
Different aliens at his disposal, too.
And that's it. So the one thing that makes it consistent is that Ben Tennyson has a device called the Omnitrix. This is a watch that allows him to transform into all kinds of different aliens from all kinds of different planets and species. Growing up, this was literally the coolest thing ever. I had like a fake Omnitrix where I could spin it and press something and, use your imagination. You pretend to be whatever alien that you picked.
I stole it and tried to play with it too.
The thing that makes Ben Tennyson amazing to me is simply all of these amazing different alien designs that get shown throughout the franchise's history. And there end up being a ton. When the show started, it was just Ben 10, and he had 10 aliens on the watch. But it's expanded so much farther than that now that we've gotten to see all kinds of different designs. Ben himself is also a complicated character, where he learns a lot of lessons along the way. And slight disagreement there.
I could maybe contest that, but I'm not going
to. Maybe contest it a little bit. Also battles with the power of what this Omnitrix means, which maybe isn't the most interesting story ever compared to like other characters that also battle with that power.
I actually do think that he has a very interesting story in regards to that. How he got the Omnitrix and his struggle of like taming the alien power. It's a kid and he gets infused with like this alien watch that plugs aliens into his, genes, and maybe he didn't have the most, crazy reaction that I would have had. I mean, it's still fiction, and over the span of the show, the original show, I should say, we definitely get a lot of him trying to figure out, a flow state with this watch and these different alien powers, and trying to figure out how to not only use it, because at first, in the beginning, it's broken, and he can't even choose an alien. It kind of comes out randomly. And I think that that's really cool. I think it's a good story device.
And there's points where he wants the Omnitrix off, and he's trying to lose this power, which some people would probably think is a blessing to be able to have all this awesome stuff, but he doesn't want it. And there's one alien in particular, which I won't necessarily spoil, that is literally trying to get out of the watch and fights him when he turns into that particular alien. And there's
that's such a cool power too.
Yeah, I know. So there's a lot of really interesting stuff going on with Ben 10 as a character, and with all of the awesome aliens that he battles with, some which seem to have their own personalities intertwined just a little bit as well.
But before we go more into that, another publicity stunt. We are going to talk about that during another thing that we're going to have. We're going to have a special called Alien Month, which is going to be coming up not this next month, but in the future. So stay tuned for that. Please like and subscribe. Sorry, continue.
That's a great plug, because we are going to be doing these themed months semi-frequently. And,
this was a lot of fun.
It was so much fun.
You guys loved it too.
Yeah, and we're excited to get into Alien Month a little bit later. Again, there's going to be a bit of a break, but can't wait for you to hopefully join us with that too. Yeah. And I think that actually kind of covers it for today's episode.
Yeah, that wraps it up.
And for Superhero Month.
Yeah.
What a great time.
Woo!
Yes. Oh, we can actually high five in person.
I know, right?
I
don't just slap my screen that's cracking every time I do it now.
Yeah, I know. He always has to get a new computer.
Yeah,
it's so silly.
So much money.
Also, go ahead and check out our social media, because
all that's going to be in the description.
Yeah, and you might get some teasers as to what might be coming up next.
Yeah.
So,
indeed.
Hang with us.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Superhero Month is out. Stay tuned next week.
Oh, and do me a favor and superscribe.
Cool.